the TOWTalk podcast live stream. Hopefully, you're all getting connected. Um, I just came back from the Spill the Tea monthly meeting at Town Hall. I mean, I literally just walked in the door like 15 minutes ago from this. It ran over. It's usually from 6 to 7 p.m. But again, it ran over. A lot of people had a lot of questions, a lot of engagement from the audience. And I did record it. I did record some people who asked questions, not everybody, but in the sense that I got you on camera. If if you were someone who did ask a question, you don't want to be on camera, let me know. I can block you out, but I might keep your question on there. But if you don't want your question on there, just let me know. All right. But some things to go over that he touched on. Number one, he pointed out that the state has been over to town hall in the last, I guess, since the last meeting, and that that investigation with regard to the finance issues is ongoing, and the state is actively involved. So he didn't really go into full detail as to what stage it is. He was just letting us know that that is in fact a an ongoing thing. So, and then after that, let's see. The other thing he brought up was that the moratorium on the warehouses, the board voted to lift. That's which is going to allow certain previous warehouse deals that were ongoing that had been held up because of the moratorium. Those are going to now proceed, and the big one that he spent some time on is the piece of property located in Fair Oaks, off of Route 17, on the opposite side that Teak and V is on. And I guess that's supposed to be a pretty substantial warehouse. It may include robotics, and they anticipate hiring as many as like 1,000 people, with jobs he said were going to be probably $60,000 or more, because they would have to be more technical jobs associated with the robotics and the AI involved. So that's something that's coming on. An audience member had asked what that could mean tax wise, as far as what kind of ratables that was going to bring. And he estimated possibly a million, because it's supposed to be pretty big. And then, he also touched um, on term limits, and so he wanted to sort of get some input on what people thought about that. From what he's looking at is possibly extending the term of 2 years to 4 years, but maximum of two terms, so a maximum of 8 years overall. And he wanted some input on that. Some people seem to agree with that, because he felt that, when you're a new supervisor, and I guess you can, as a new councilman, you can probably talk to us about that. Your first year or two, you're just kind of getting your feet wet, learning about how the whole process works, because as you guys always say, you don't know what you don't know until you get there and you find out, oh shit, I didn't know this. So that's what he talked about, and he felt that maybe 4 years really gives a incoming supervisor more time to really, if they're looking to make change, if they have certain policies they were campaigning on that they want to get through, that 4 years is more likely to do that. And then we can, after a second term, move on to some new people to keep a constant rotation and change in government. New people move into the community. Uh, More people move on out of the community. You get more younger people involved. There were some young people in the audience too, and so you know that happened. Ralph Carr had some comments on that. Ralph Carr was there. By the way, he indicated he wants to be on the show. So, Ralph, I don't know if you're watching from wherever you are, but make sure you message us in the comments and let me know how to reach out to you, and we will get you onto the show. For those who don't know, Ralph was running against Frank for the supervisor position, and he seems to be pretty supportive. He's showed up to pretty much every tea that I have been at, so he is a fixture there. and he engaged a bit on questions about the particularly with the term limits. His feeling was that if you elect someone you're not happy with, 4 years is too long to get them out, right? Um, so I have a question. I do have a question for you, Neil, with as a former councilman. If it was to occur, that somebody came in, maybe they made promises, they didn't fulfill their duties, maybe they were discovered to be less than savory, can a town supervisor um, be impeached?
No, no,
No. Okay.
no.
Okay.
Listen, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, right? Think about what we've had. We've had politicians in office for over 10 years and they did not do what was in the town's best interest.
And he pointed that out because
You
we have
know,
one.
so and we have two current members of our board who weren't doing what was in the town's best interest. And really put the town in a financial hole as a result.
Right.
And so this idea of, you know, oh, well, what if we want to keep somebody longer? Or what if we, listen, there are good people who get into public office, right? Who you don't want to get rid of. And then there are really bad people that you want to get rid of. And it seems that no matter what, like the good people end up leaving, and the bad people end up staying, so I'm sorry, you gotta. I think the term limit. I think he's right on target. The only thing I would recommend and add on to that would be that it should be staggered. That the board should be staggered terms. So in other words, two
That's a good
board member.
idea.
So every 4 years, but every 2 years, right? You would elect two board members, right? As opposed to the entire board switching over in 1 year. I can tell you that for the most part, we had the entire board switch over my first year on the board, with the exception of one councilman and the supervisor. And that I got to tell you, you're coming in to a situation, right? Just as you said, you don't know what you don't know. And you get gaslit right from the very start. Oh, yeah, you're supposed to get this. You're not supposed to get this. Don't worry about this. Right. And you get a lot of that. And then all of a sudden you're like, but I'm supposed to worry about that. I'm supposed to get that. Right. Like, then you start realizing and then now you're playing from an adversarial point of view, right? Because now all of a sudden, it makes it look like you didn't ask for these things before, and now all of a sudden you're asking for them. So why are you asking for them, right? Like
Yes.
it becomes stupid, right? So I think you do staggered terms,
It's a good
term
idea.
limits, 4 year term limits for your councilman and your town supervisor, and you can serve a maximum of 2 terms. I love it. All for it.
Let's see this. We got a question here. I'm going to post it here, show on stream. Why not just make major changes in the first 4 years and then elect a person for 4 years until the first term clause, really digging deep until the second term? Um,
I don't really understand that. I don't understand the question. I can tell you, you barely know. After 4 years as a councilman, you're really starting to scratch the surface on some of the economics that you need to
okay.
learn, right? Depending on who's on the board and the people in your kind of circle who can kind of help guide you. And you really should lean heavily on the state comptroller's office for guidance. And there are plenty of classes. I highly suggest taking the classes. I didn't know about the classes until I was like already like 2 or 3 years in, right? So now all of a sudden I'm 2 or 3 years in. I'm now starting to take classes. I'm now starting to learn. So by that note, I would be done, right? Like, I wouldn't be a councilman anymore by the time I learned, what it was that I needed to do. It took a good, I want to say, 4 or 5 years before you start getting your sea legs about you.
Yeah. I want to point to this term limits thing. So just so folks know the way it works, because he was explaining it, he didn't get the chance to really dig into it because he was looking for input from the audience, and the audience was focused on what was happening on their roads and trucks being on shut road and questions about developments going on. And so it got into a longer conversation about issues with people's roads and potholes and that kind of thing,
Right.
and kind of moved away from the term limits. So I heard him. He was talking off camera. Why does the first term and second term need to be simultaneous?
I think
That's
they mean consecutive. Like, in other words, you can serve two non-consecutive terms.
well,
I
I
mean,
guess it maximum
it's
two
so
terms is a
rare.
max.
It's so rare that they would be non-consecutive.
Yeah,
You
I mean
know,
that
I
right,
mean,
right.
like if you got elected and then didn't get like maybe saying like Frank serving two terms because they were non-consecutive, but I'm trying to understand like it's so rare other than maybe to have to be serving non-consecutive terms
Yeah, I
because
mean,
most people move on. Most
yeah,
people move
I
on.
I think it would still be a maximum. Like you wouldn't
Right.
get to, well, because it was a break, you get another term. No, but what he was saying is that whatever he was looking for. Um. Okay. Okay. Don. Okay. And let me put this back in here. Okay. Okay. Consecutive Don was rare. Um. I'm not understanding. Rare in
I
what
think they
way?
meant don't always. I don't know. I don't understand the the typing isn't. I'm sorry.
I
the typing
apologize.
is. Yeah, we apologize.
Um.
Um,
We'll try to address your question here, but what I just want to point out is that he wanted some input as to what people would be for or against. Would it be a maximum? He's looking ultimately at a maximum of 8 years in office for both council positions and councilman positions, whether or not they're consecutive or non-consecutive. Wasn't brought up, but and yes, and it's not consecutive. You're right. DJT is on, and you know what? The law allows for that. You can be he. I don't think he's the first president to have that happen, to have been voted in, then not make the second term, and then come back again for another term. Is that? I don't think he's the only president. I think there was one other one that might have happened to. Um, but it would be the same thing here,
right.
if that's what your
So I think
question is.
right. I think our question is we don't want to. It doesn't have to be consecutive as long as it's just two terms. Which I can agree with that.
Right. So
I
the
can agree with that. Because it would be more likely. Okay, just as a thought process, right? A thought exercise. It would be more likely that somebody would serve their two terms, right? Get elected, serve their two terms, not run again, and then maybe run again the next time around because the person who took their place doesn't really want the job. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't really want these jobs. They're really tough. They're really tough to recruit for. Like nobody wants to run for office. Let's be honest, right? We talk about these as being highly sought after jobs, but they're really not.
Well, that also was part of the conversation, because we pointed to the fact that Eric Valentin served some 26, 27 years, and he ran unopposed over and over and over again. Um, you know, no, and no, you shouldn't be able to get like you serve 2 4-year terms or 4 2-year terms, and then you break, and then you can come back and do it all over again. No,
Right.
maximum, you're done. When you're done, you're done.
The only the
Um,
only thing the only
that's what
thing
that
that
means.
I the only thing that I would say where you have the roundabout, right? And I understand what this person is talking about. And there is a bit of a roundabout, right? Because you could serve two terms as a councilman, which is 8 years. Okay. Then you can run for town supervisor and
Right.
serve two terms as town supervisor, which is another 8 years. So now you've served 16 years in government.
On
Okay.
your
And
board.
then and then on the board. right? And then if you wanted to, right, you could run if you wanted to for receiver of taxes, right? Or you could run for town clerk, right? So you can run for other offices. It doesn't preclude you from serving in other
Right.
elected positions. It just means you can't serve in that position.
For beyond, right. And just for everybody's understanding, regardless, if the if the board was to approve a measure for extending term limits or limiting term limits, that would, once it's approved, it goes on the ballot, and the town votes on it. So we make the ultimate decision as to whether or not we want
Right.
limits and what that term limit should be.
And
So
they
it's
and
not
they'll
one and done by a vote,
and remember,
a
there'll be
board vote.
it'll be three ballot measures. It won't be one. So people going in thinking like I'm just voting yes or no, right? There'll likely be three different ballot measures. Okay.
Right.
There'll be one ballot measure regarding term limits, right? So extending the term limits from 2 years to 4 years, because that has to be separate. Okay.
Okay.
Then there would be a second one that would say term limits. Okay. So then it would have term limits, of two consecutive or two terms or whatever it is, whatever wording that they decide. So then you would have that one. And then if they decided to do the staggered, there would be another ballot measure regarding staggering
The council positions,
the
councilman position.
right, the councilman positions, right. So there could potentially be three different ballot measures related to this,
Okay.
right? Which could cause really for an interesting kind of outcome if you really think about it, right? Because people could technically end up voting for term limits, right? But not vote to extend the terms. So then what do
Right.
you do, right? So now you're stuck with two terms, 2 2-year terms, right? So then that's 4 years. Okay. And I can tell you right now, that would be a disaster for the town. That would be another disaster for the town.
Well, yeah, just as you said, it takes a few years to really get
Right.
adjusted as to how things work and what's involved, and then trying to work in and do some change. As this person talked about making change within the first term, you probably aren't going to really be rolling to get that change going until you're in your second term and people are more familiar with you. Um, and so the
Takes a while for people to get to know you. We saw that with the former supervisor, George Serrano, who put his name on everything, right? Like that was how he tried to get his name out there. Was he put his name on everything? So like let's do that. I mean, you'll end up having more of that type of nonsense, right? Where you end up with a lot of wasted money, right? Because the supervisor wants to put their name on everything to get their name recognition out there and boost their name recognition. And we unfortunately saw that in a real way over the past 4 years of George Serrano.
And I want to speak to that because that was a question I wanted to ask, and then everybody started asking, talking about their roads and the pothole down the street, and we kind of got off the whole topic of term limits, and so I never got to ask it. I did ask him, I did point it out off a camera. It was just a comment that I wanted to make, is that with a 2-year term, you know, you're already half of that time you're spending campaigning for your next election, right? You really don't have time to get things done because now you have to campaign, and
Right.
to try, if you want to get things done, you want to obviously stay in the seat to get those things done, so you have to campaign, but then you don't have the time to get those things done because you have to campaign for a year to get reelected.
You people really don't understand that a lot of these projects, okay, take years, right?
Yes.
So you look at the first 3 years of George Serrano, right, where he was talking about like we had just completed, believe it or not, we had just completed, right, a number of those New York Rising projects. Okay. Okay. New York Rising. I was one of the co-chairmen of New York Rising. Those are my projects. Okay. Right. So, you know, what I found was funny was that he was like, "Oh yeah, look at what I did." Right? And it's like it was like those were New York Rising projects. We received a grant. I wrote 3 grants. Right? Like I mean, there was this idea that they take credit for I mean, but that's what you do. You take credit for the previous administration's work. Like Adams was already in the process by the time George got in office, right? Like, they were
Really?
already, so that had nothing to do with George. He just literally like was like, okay, well, everything's been approved. I'll do the ribbon cutting with you. Like,
I didn't know that. I didn't know.
a lot of these things, and listen, not for nothing, that will happen in the future, right? Like there'll be a number of projects that were started under George that will come to fruition underneath Frank. It happens in every administration, but when you have that 2-year window, okay, and you get a
Yes.
grant, right, and it takes 4 years for that grant to get finished. Okay. You could be out of office by the time that grant is finished, and nobody's even going to know your name, you
Wow.
know,
Really?
because you think about it, how long it takes. That's how long it takes. So you really kind of think about these roles. The first 2 years, what are you doing? You can talk to any one of these guys, and they'll tell you, I get a lot of emails. I have to look over a lot of financial information. It's a lot hitting me at once, and I have to approve these things. And you have to figure out what the background is. And because a lot of these things that you're approving today, like were yesterday's thing, right?
Yeah.
In other words, they were discussed yesterday, when you
Right.
weren't in office. And that's part of the problem of changing over sometimes is that you lose that institutional knowledge. And all of a sudden you're like being forced to approve things that you don't agree with, or that you've gotten 90% of the way there, and you might want to go back and renegotiate, but you're 90% of the way there and you're already at the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's tough.
yeah, it's really it's not all glory.
It is none of it is glory. I can tell you that firsthand, right? There's listen. I recruited my ass off to try to find people to run for local government. It is, if you want it to be just one of those jobs where you collect a paycheck, show up for things, and have people pay you on the back, it can be that for you. Um, but that's not really the job, and that's not really what your constituents are paying you for. And if that's why you want to be in politics, then you really shouldn't be in politics. Go into something else. Like seriously, you know. And I can just tell you, I worked really hard, and it was not easy. It was not easy. You know.
You're welcome. So did we answer your question? I hope we addressed it.
I think we
Uh,
did. I think
I
we
think we
did.
did.
That's why.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh, good. Yeah, yeah. It's not easy. Um, and there's a lot of responsibilities. Hey, Marty. um, but yeah, that was I thought that was an important topic, and it kind of got people had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, um, particularly with regard to their roads. And roads is a big issue here. Wherever you live, you want to make sure you have decent roads to drive on, and there has been some issues with roads not getting
Because
their
so
attention.
I will tell you exactly what's
I
happened
was waiting
every
for you to
year.
do that. That's why I
And
brought it
and
up.
because it fucking kills me every year. Every year, right, that I was on the board, they would do a paving schedule. They would show me the paving schedule. Okay. Eric Valentin would go into Lou Ingrassia's office and change the fucking paving schedule so that his streets would get paved every year and everybody else would get screwed. Okay. And that's what he did every year. And that pissed me the hell off, right? Because there were roads in the third ward that really, really needed to be paved. Okay. And you could just look around town now. You can look around town. They hired an expert to go out and rate the roads around town. Okay. And Lou did a great job. He put together a great schedule for the town. And if the town had stuck to the schedule, the roads in this town would be actually a lot better. Right. But what they would do is they would turn it around. They would change the paving schedule because they all wanted their roads to be paved. Right. Because no, oh, we're not going to patch that one up. My friend lives there, right? Like that's what you got. So what you would end up getting are roads that some roads got paved every few years and other roads didn't get paved for like 30 years, which is ridiculous.
Wow. Wow.
Ridiculous. That's why we had a C rating. We got a C rating on our roads from that consultant that they brought in, the former supervisor of the town of Walkill, Howard Mills. Remember, they brought him in
Yes.
months ago to evaluate the town's roads, and he said that the town had a C. And it was interesting because you look around and you see the only roads that were an A, okay, were the roads around Dundee Circle, which were Eric Valentine's.
Wow.
That was
That
it.
yeah, that's interesting. Now in, another, complaint that came in was, from someone who pointed out that, um, it seemed like there was a lot of trash that doesn't get picked up alongside the roads. I think that's another issue. And also that, the road on Mud Mills alongside the train tracks, uh, the I guess that's run by I think that's a state, um
It's the railroad.
yeah, yeah, and they have not been coming in and mowing and pulling the weeds, and so it's, like, very
No.
overgrown and it's unattractive, and, Frank said he knows. You ask them to come out, they don't come out, to take care of that, so but for people who have questions about that, but he does plan
Welcome
to
to New York
address
State.
yeah, he plans
Welcome
to
to New York
address the
State.
beautifying of the town that was brought up, and, I thought that was, a good thing to point out because people have a lot of concerns, and the most important thing, like I said before, is the roads and making sure the roads look good. So I'm glad you addressed that. um
Part of the issue we're having, because this issue has actually come up in numerous other municipalities, are the garbage trucks. Because the garbage trucks are leaking garbage everywhere. So the garbage goes in, but if you ever watch, you'll see like plastic bags, you'll see paper, you'll see garbage flying out the back of the truck as they're driving down the road. It's happened, it happens. And it happens every believe it or not, it happens every few years where because I remember this actually like 5 years ago where somebody brought it to my attention. I had to call the garbage companies and I had to say, we have a problem. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And they fixed the problem. So
that's
sometimes you just have to alert them that there's a problem. And
yes,
what ends up happening is we get stuck in this idea of, well, who do we call? What do we do? I don't know who to report this to. I don't know where this is coming from. And we like to complain about things, but sometimes there are really simple solutions. And sometimes it just takes picking up a phone and making a phone call.
yeah, yeah. And you know what, I'm gonna say this. One of the people that were in the audience, the one that was concerned, because there's a lot of trucks that have been parking alongside shut road where they're not supposed to be, and so Frank talked about they're looking to create some ordinances to make that illegal, um, but so that they can be properly ticketed. But she got up and she said she thanked, Frank for answering her phone calls and speaking directly to her about the problem with the trucks that are spending overnights and sometimes several days or even weeks. Um, Hello, Cheryl Demori. We've got
Interesting how they got a law that prevents the trucks from parking in uh oh god, no, I can't remember the apartments behind you, Patio Road area, but they can't get it on shut.
yeah. Yeah. Where would they put trucks on patio road? That's like really, really
There
congested
was
over
a
there.
there was like one guy who parked his tractor trailer on patio, just like
Yeah.
the
Just
cab.
like the cab. So,
Yeah.
I remember for a while this Tower Bridge was being rebuilt last year, there was a long-term tractor trailer that kind of kept parking out there for a while. A lot of people had some issues with that. Um, but yes,
It's you don't have, that's one thing we really don't have is we don't have any type of industrial parking.
yes,
I mean, I hate to say it, but we're building all these warehouses which are bringing more trucks, but when you have more trucks and you have more truck drivers living in
uh,
the area, you have to have a place for them. I mean, a lot of these truck drivers, some of them are independent, some of them have their own trucks, and you got to give them a place to park sometimes, you
yeah,
know? You don't want
yeah,
it on your street. We have to provide some other environment for them to do so.
yeah. And we talked more about that. I guess it's called triangle, something triangle for that's where
Golden
the
Triangle.
golden triangle. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's the warehouse.
Yeah.
There's actually going to be a total of two warehouses there. You know, this was agreed upon. Why they picked that spot, I don't know, but this was agreed upon um, before Frank, right?
Ed Diana.
At Diana.
Eddie. Easy Eddie.
Easy,
Easy Eddie.
easy Eddie.
Easy Eddie.
Yep. And so I was driving across that bridge today, and I noticed how they almost put like a lane all the way to the right there. Now I realize what it's there for. It's so the tractor trailers can make a wide turn to make the left to go across the bridge because they're practically in the lawn of the house that is across the street from that intersection. So
Yes,
they
they
made it
are.
wider. So they are doing a lot of road work. They're widening the road to allow for the turns for the tractor trailers that are likely to come through there. Because I understand is the building that's up there now has 80 bays. So I mean, yeah, they nobody thought to do any kind of a study to determine what that would be like having massive tractor trailers. First of all, going across that bridge, which has a weight limit, right? That's a big one. And then how it would
No,
impact.
there was a study that was done,
Was there?
and the study determined that they shouldn't do it. That was the
But they
study,
did it anyway.
but they did it anyway. I mean, like Medline did the study. I mean, why do you think Medline ended up in Montgomery? One of the reasons was not only um uh the IDA thing, but it was also the fact that the access. They wanted an access road, and they didn't feel that the town of Waco could provide them with a proper access road, and they didn't think the bridge could withstand the weight of the trucks.
Right.
So, right.
All right. All right.
What do
So
you, I mean, these things happen, like this is the way local government works, you know, and you want the revenue, you want the commercial revenue, but at the same time, you also want to keep your rural characteristics.
right. Well, that's where a planning board comes into play, so that they
That's where
can map out
planning comes in. Planning, just
planning. Right.
planning in
Just
general.
planning in general, right? Just to plan out where you're going to put these things, so that you don't have industry sitting in your backyard like we kind of do now.
I mean, if you really think about it, if you think about this town and the way it's laid out, right? If this town were like Sim City,
Sim
okay?
City.
If it were Sim City, right? You had the Silver Lake, okay, you had the body of water, Silver Lake over there, which was really nice. And you had all the right. Would you build this way? Would you build this way? Like, would this be the town that you would build?
No.
No, not even remotely close. Listen, I grew up here. I've lived here my entire life. I love the town, but I gotta, listen, I gotta, it's like a dog with fleas. You love your dog, but you gotta get rid of the fleas.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. You just
Exactly.
wouldn't build a town like this. You just wouldn't do it.
Right. Right. Oh my god. So, let me see, what else we I'm trying to think of what else. Just again, just a reminder, I did record it almost from the very beginning. I think I caught his greeting to everyone, but I got most of all of it. He did run over, and I will post that as soon as as soon as I get it all uploaded and organized and edited. Um, let's see what else is going on.
I would, I would suggest, if you're a fan of the show, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think about term limits, about what we discussed
Yeah,
regarding, the whole thing. We'd like to hear your opinions on the matter. As I said, we love feedback. We love hearing your comments. Please feel free to join in and let us know who you are and ask any questions you got, or maybe propose a topic that you'd like to hear about. I mean, there is a lot going on in the news. You know,
yeah.
I think even locally. So one of the things we heard locally going on, and I'm just going to announce it because I thought it was very interesting. Um, in the town of Newburgh, or in the city of Newburgh, sorry, they have a mayor, Torrance Harvey. Okay. Torrance Harvey announced that that this will be his final term and that he's not seeking reelection.
Now, now is that a I guess there's no term limits for mayor?
No. Well, there's no term limits generally for for local positions. So,
So
that's why we're talking about creating term limits. There's no term limits. Yeah, he can keep running, but I heard today that he announced that he's going to move on. So, and then he wants to retire from public life. So I wish him well, wish him the best of luck, and good luck to the next mayor of the city of Newburgh.
yeah.
You
So
know,
Marty wants to know, I would love to know what you think about after 10 years, certain people in the town get lifetime health care.
I've given my opinion on that, Marty, numerous times, right? So many local municipalities have that provision, right? The provision in the town of Waukegan was 15 years for employees. So you would have to work 15 consecutive years and retire, right? Retire with the town. Okay. So you have to retire from the system with the town. Okay. In order to receive that lifetime healthcare benefit. Okay. What Mark Coyne, Serrano, Valentin, Coyne, like what those guys did was they said for board members only, for handbook employees only, okay, right? We're going to make it 10 years. So they reduced it because this is that last year was their 10th year. And now they're not running. So they're getting their, as long as they retire with the town, they they're going to have that lifetime benefit. They're going to have health care for the rest of their lives. I never thought it should be 10 years. Personally, my feeling is that for employees that work 15 years with the town, I think that's a good number. To a certain degree, I may even say maybe that should be 20, but 15 years I think is a good compromise number for a lot of the employees who
But
do work very hard for the town. And again, you have to retire with the town. So if you leave to go to another municipality, you
you
don't
lose
get the
that.
benefit. Right.
So it's an
So
encouragement to stay employed with the town.
it's encouragement to stay employed with the town. Correct. Um, as for elected officials, though, I do not think
That's
remotely that elected officials should be getting that benefit at all. I think you
thank you.
get the healthcare benefit when you're in office. That's great. But getting lifetime health benefits, right, for being a councilman or being a supervisor? Come on now.
Yeah, see,
Come on,
that's what I was
son.
gonna say. It's a
No
big
way.
difference from being a town employee from being an elected official, because elected official could be very temporary. I agree. I think and not to mention the fact, and that's gonna bring up another topic that we can talk about, and one that's been going around here for a while now with this new election cycle that we're in, is that these positions are part-time positions versus employees of the town who are working full-time jobs, right? So they're not only elected, but they're part-time,
Right.
regardless of
So
what the complaint is about the salary.
right. So mind you, we're hearing a lot of complaints about the salary for the town supervisor, the salary which they set, right? Like
Yeah.
they set it, right? But you don't hear about the fact that two of the board members who are walking out the door and one who walked out the board door last year all are going to be walking away with a lifetime health care benefit. Health
Wow.
care for life, right? How much is the town's healthcare? Now they have family healthcare, okay? Family healthcare right now for night shift, right, is $43,000 a year.
They're walking away with family health care for life?
Family healthcare for life, $43,000 a year is the benefit that they're getting. All right? Now again, if you're in public office and you're working, you should get the benefit because the salary is pretty low. I personally think, again, the supervisor salary, we've talked about that. I'm not going to get into that again, right? But the councilman's salary at $15,000 when I was there was pretty low given the number of hours that you work. Okay. And really the benefit is the healthcare, right? That's what you're coming away with. But that healthcare benefit, $43,000 a year, right? And these guys want to complain about salary. Meanwhile, three of them just walked out the door with $43,000 a year each in terms of healthcare. One of them
But
walked
nobody
out, and
wants
two
to
of them
talk
were
about
about to walk
that.
in. Nobody wants to talk about that. That they gave themselves that. They didn't even qualify before they changed the law, the handbook, right? That allowed them to be able to get that.
Yeah, because you would think that that would have been a ballot measure that the
No.
people should. We couldn't have voted on that.
No, it's a benefit. It goes right in the handbook. It's a handbook
Yeah, but
issue. Here's the thing. What they should have done though is they should have voted in public on that. Okay? But what they did was is every one of these votes that I'm talking about where these changes were made behind closed doors at a work session, right? Where there were no cameras. There was no discussion, there was nothing.
yeah. That let me see. Good. Maybe the new board should vote to revoke their health care.
Listen, so boards can say that elected officials no longer receive health care. Okay.
But
They
they would
can say
already
that.
be grandfathered in.
It's very hard once you've received a benefit to take away a benefit. Now, here's the thing they get elected every 2 years. One can
Not
make the
flying here.
argument, if you wanted to make the argument in court, right? One could make the argument that they're a new employee every time they're elected. It's again, the
Oh,
board
that's
would
it.
have to the board would have to make the decision to make that fight. And, is there going to be a board that would really, really want to go to court and have that fight?
It's interesting. And here's another question. So if we're looking at term limits and we're saying, okay, if you run for supervisor, if you run for council person, now you have an 8-year term limit, which would your term would end before the 10 years. If you run again for a different role, does those years get added on or does
Yeah.
yeah, it does.
It's
Okay.
consecutive years with the town. It doesn't define years. It says consecutive years with the town. That's it. You
Ah,
have to
okay.
serve
So
10 consecutive years with the town and retire with the town.
okay, so with Dash's question then, if there was a break, say you got unelected and then you came back and got reelected again, you now have a break. Are you starting the clock over again?
Interesting question. Depends on how their handbook is written. So most handbooks are written that if you come back within a year, right? Like in other words, if you leave and come back within a year, that all your benefits are reinstated from when you left. Given the statement of elections, right? So you get elected. So you're talking 2 years, maybe two, let's
Minimum
just
two
say two
years right
years,
now.
right? You're talking a minimum of 2 years. No, that those previous benefits would not be grandfathered unless the board chooses to grandfather them.
Ah, okay. So then that's up to a vote. Got it. Okay. All
The
right.
board can pretty much, I mean, like, you got to remember something. Your board can pretty much do whatever it wants, right? Like, I mean, like, this is, I keep saying this, right? There, there are like certain guardrails, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, there are really no guardrails like on your board. Your board is your management of your company, of your town, right? We saw this in where was it? I think it was outside of Illinois. There was a
Yeah.
town where there was a mayor who like stole like $7 million of the town's budget. Okay. She got bodyguards for herself. She fixed up her house. I mean, like, she did all this stuff, and then they elected her mayor of the village. Like, she was town supervisor, then she became mayor of the village, and she just was taking money. She was commingling money left and right. There were no guardrails on her. And so finally somebody came in, and the state comptroller's office, right, in Illinois was like, all right, we got to investigate. We got to shut this shit down, right? And then, like, finally, like, one of the state legislators was like, all right, I'll run for town supervisor. I got to fix this shit. And it turned out the town was in a huge deficit. The village was in a huge deficit. She
You
ended up
think?
she got run out of town. She ended up moving to Georgia and now wants to become an election commissioner in Georgia. Like, it's a freaking riot. Like, the whole thing's a freaking riot. But
Like, how is she not in jail?
because what ultimate crime did she commit?
Uh, Taking the town's money and pocketing it?
Misappropriation of
Miss
funds, but misappropriation of funds is only a misappropriation if the board doesn't vote on it.
So she
Right?
got them to vote for, like, remodeling her house? Voted for
It depends on
bodyguards?
you'd be really, really freaking surprised. Look at the town. The town put a security officer, right, for George, because George needed a security officer because he was having an affair with an employee. I mean, come on. That's why they had to hire security to protect George, right? Like, I mean, this is the nonsense.
This is
This is the nonsense that you had going on.
this is the dirt you just don't hear about. This is the reason why one thing we've done with our local podcast here is talk about how important it is to be engaged in what's happening in your backyard. And we're all engaged with what's happening in Washington, and we're all engaged in what's happening in Albany, but nobody looks in their backyard. And one question that Frank asked the audience, and he had also asked it the last time, was we have 38,000 people in this town. That's what he said. It's 38,000. How many people voted in the last election? You know how many? He said 4,000 people.
Yeah.
I
About
guess
right.
by 38,000, that's voters, right? People who could vote. Um,
I don't
More
think
or
we have that
less.
many voters. I think those are residents. Those aren't
Residents.
all
Okay.
voters. Yeah.
Right, right. I should say that. Right, residents. But yeah,
Right.
4,000. There isn't as much engagement. And that
No.
was a presidential year. So more people are coming out to vote those once every 4 years, because some people will just vote in presidential elections, but they don't vote. That's one of the reasons why this term is 1 year, because we're shifting the local votes to be every 2 years, so they're aligned with federal elections, whether it's Congress.
It's even
y-
years.
y- yeah,
Even
even
years.
years,
Yeah.
right? And so you would think that in an off year, like we were doing odd years, we wouldn't uh we wouldn't have we wouldn't have as many elections. That's exactly what was happening, right? Because these elections were happening mostly in odd years, right?
So yeah, your local elections happen in the odd years, and federal and state elections happen in even years. And the reason for that, there was an obvious reason for that, was the low information voter, right? You don't want, the real question is, do you really want a low information voter voting in your local elections? Because if they're already low information, okay, on federal and state issues, right, then that they probably know nothing about your local politics. And now you're giving them a say, and they could end up voting somebody in who shouldn't be voted in, you know? Not to say that the people who are voting are doing a bang up job, but it's it's right, like it's the theory, right? These are the theories that we play out. I mean, these are the thought exercises related to this, and part of the reason for that, um, not for nothing, and this is where I get to this, um, is many of the local municipalities in New York State, believe it or not, are run by Republicans.
Yes.
Period. I know that Democrats hold the state Senate and the state assembly and the state governor's office, and everybody thinks that this is a Democratic state because of New York City. But most of the municipalities outside New York City,
Uh,
right, like have Republicans in charge,
right.
and so since there is a growing Democratic demographic, and now that's being pushed outside the city, okay, um they're trying to break the stranglehold that the Republicans have on local offices and local officials. And one of the ways to do that is to move local elections to even years, because then there'll likely be more Democratic voters that turn out for the election.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, so
that's
that's
the
why
that's the behind the scenes deep state shit that we talk about.
deep state, really? Oh my
I mean,
god.
like I mean, that's a democratic theory, right? It's a stupid theory, but that is the democratic theory, right? The other theory, because you know, we could all have the mindset, these are all local elections. We don't want low information voters voting in our local elections. We can absolutely say that, because we go around town, we have these conversations. How many people know that the town lost its bond rating? How many people in the last election knew that the town lost its bond rating?
N-
You know? Like, I
That
mean,
that actually did become a pretty important part of the election, but after it was revealed, especially when it was discovered that it had been hidden from the public for a year and a half.
but it
Didn't
still
even.
wasn't reported in the paper. And of the 4,000 people
Yeah,
that voted,
yeah,
no, it
it was
wasn't.
report.
No, it wasn't. It was
I
net. The loss of the bond rating was not reported in the paper.
I thought it appeared in Mid Hudson News.
Nope. Mid
Oh,
Hudson News would not report it. Right. So my question is, of the 4,000 people that voted, how
wow.
many of those 4,000 people actually knew? Is it just a handful of people that watched us and like followed us and followed me, right, in
Uh,
particular? Or like, right, so I mean, we really are talking low information voters. People just
because they
don't.
don't have the information.
Right,
Yeah, yeah. You make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends so we can get
right.
this information out. Because you obviously. So I honestly thought that had been published
Don't.
or didn't appear on like any even like News 12 or anything. Like that's
Nope.
that's that's
Nope.
major news. So for those that don't
It was
understand
major
what.
news. No, it was major news into 2024 when it occurred.
Right.
In 2025, when it was discovered, right, it was then old news, because now they had been living with it for a year, even though they never put out an announcement. They didn't want, right? Like, again, it's they'll lie to you. They lied to you yesterday. They lied to you today. They're gonna lie to you tomorrow through their surrogates, right? I we're seeing it now, right? Like, we're seeing signs go up all around town. Vote for me. I'm the only positive candidate. You know, like you're running a freaking web page that literally just like slanders everybody in town.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty
Right?
funny.
I'm sorry. You're the one making everything negative. You and your people around are the ones making this town negative because you just don't like who's in charge of it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I think that, for those that don't know, we occasionally bring up the fact that there is an AI slop page out there, in social media that posts this ridiculous, BS. But, just to comment on it is that there seems to be there is a real aggressive, almost desperation to to, um, to somehow slander the supervisor of this town, Supervisor Dendanto, in a way that makes me really concerned because one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest focuses that he made for his campaign was to dig into the financial issues that this town has and goes back many years, and to uncover problems and hopefully rectify them and plug the leaks, his words, that have occurred. Like there was a major leak that occurred because of the poor procedures that were being held that led to a $405,000 theft of town funds. And so and just the desperation that I see with the communication, with the slanderous advertisements that they're trying to post out there, it tells me that there's a certain desperation that they don't want him to stay long enough because this is not something that's going to be discovered in 5 minutes. It's going to take months and months and probably a year or two to really dig and complete that investigation and be able to produce results that make sense. And they don't want him to come back because they don't want him to keep going. I really think that's what it is, and I really think because there may be something there that needs to be uncovered. That without without somebody actively working on it, right?
I
It will get
will
found out.
how about this? For the next time we go live, I'm gonna queue up Mark Coyne telling me at the last budget meeting that I attended, right, saying you're not gonna get the information, we're not gonna give it to you. Period.
Wow, really?
So I like for me, okay, they've been hiding shit from me, okay, since day one I arrived there. Okay. Normal people don't do that. I gotta tell you something. All right. For those who don't know, I am a comptroller for another municipality. I do accounting, right? But I have people from other municipalities calling me, okay, asking me like to take a look at things, to ask me my accounting advice, all this kind of stuff. These guys didn't want to show me a goddamn thing. They didn't want me to have access to anything. They completely hid everything and then lied and then continued to lie and then lied again, right? They've been doubling down on their freaking lies from day one. Okay. So for me, I'm like this. They've been doing this from day one. They don't want anybody, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
They don't want people to know. And again,
That's my
there
point.
are things happening, right? Like people don't even understand. I mentioned, I think, pilot agreements that weren't being adhered to, right? The town was keeping money that it shouldn't have kept, related to pilot agreements. Okay. You had you had a water leak. Believe it or not, when you said leak, there actually was a water leak in this town. There was a giant water leak in this town that had gone unknown. Like it was known, but it wasn't known, right? Like we knew that we were losing revenue because water was leaving the pumping station, right? But it wasn't being recorded on water meters, right?
Oh, great.
So, but there was no analysis because they wouldn't give the numbers over. So it was never known that we had that until we went through and we started looking at everybody's bills, and we realized like some people weren't being billed at all, right? Like there were errors, right, related to that. We found a number of water leaks, right? Like all of a sudden, Frank came in the first time around and we started an investigation and we found stuff, right? And it was stuff that they didn't want found because they argued with it. You could see the arguments, right? Like, oh, you took this individual away from me because we needed to get this project done because people weren't being billed for their water. Okay. So,
Wow.
like
That's
to
a loss of
me,
revenue.
right. But to me, this was how they operated. They just operated like we just don't give a shit. We don't give a shit about the town's finances. We just care that we get to spend the money the way we want to spend it. All right. And you know, you look at ARPA, ARPA was a freaking mess, right? Like they literally just were like, oh, we spent this amount of millions on highway, this amount of millions on our parks, and this, you know, it was like literally just like they didn't detail anything,
That's
right? It was
the
all the cover
American Rescue Plan, right?
right.
Yeah, okay.
It was all the cover operating costs, right? Because they couldn't, because they didn't budget properly. They didn't know how to budget. They didn't know what budget properly. So what did they end up doing? They ended up like we're like, oh, let's just roll this the, you know, we'll just roll this in operating costs because we don't have enough money. They knew that they didn't have enough money. They knew that they were running out of money. They didn't
That's
care. They didn't tell anybody. They didn't care. They lost a bond rating. They were like, we don't care. They had the money stolen. They were like, we don't care. We're not going to tell anybody. Everything is great. And you're still hearing the same shit from them. Everything's great.
yeah, and it's not. And so, I would say it was a very good meeting. It was very informative. One thing that Frank is good at, he's a good, he seems to be very well versed on what is going on. Let me, we got a question. Yeah, yes. Let's not talk of a certain someone not paying their water bills. Yeah, yeah. We know who that is. Yeah. So that also occurred. Things that can happen with your board. Um, yeah. Thanks for reminding us
There,
of that.
as, but getting back to what I said before, you know, things occur and the board can rectify those things by just a vote. Okay. So, you know, so when they were doing the payroll audit, I was informed of an illegal payout that was made. Okay. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, we got to get the money back. Right. Well, we're not getting the money back. Right. I found out that after I left office, January after I left office, they got Steve to vote to cure George's misappropriation of funds, because George made the illegal payout without town board approval. And so they ended up approving it once I got out of office because they knew I would make a stink about it if I had known about it.
Wow.
This is
Yeah.
how they operate. This is how they operate. So they can do something illegal today, and then tomorrow they can just vote and cure it. Okay. And that's how they operated, right? If somebody found it, they would just vote on it and make it all go away and say it never happened.
Wow. That's interesting, and then that can happen. And if there's, I think everybody here that's on with us is both mostly local, but if you're not, it's a reason to be engaged in your township. By the way, thank you for everyone who is engaging, because you are paying attention.
Yeah.
By the way, was anybody else who's here in our audience today? Were you in attendance at tonight's spill the tea? Yeah, don't all answer at once.
I think you're a little behind too, so I think we got
Oh,
to
yeah,
give people
that's
the
true.
opportunity to catch up.
Yeah,
But
that's true. I always forget about the delay, so
yeah,
I'm sorry that people might not see,
I
the
I
questions right away.
personally I personally think, you know, it's you have to, if you're seeing your board vote on curing a lot of shit from the past, okay, and they're not being proactive and keeping up with things, then there's an internal issue.
Okay.
And you should then be looking at your board and finding out, is this a board issue or is this another issue, right? Because
Yes.
if it's your board issue, then they're not managing properly, and that becomes a problem, you know?
They that's a very good point. Um, wow. I can't believe we're already past an hour here. We usually do this for an hour, but definitely open to taking more questions if anybody has any specific questions. Um, I also
Yeah, I
want
can't stay on too much longer, people, so
yes. First of all, first of all, I want to, Neil had a major surgery last week. Was Thursday, right?
Uh,
Like in the middle of the night, you had this
yeah.
back surgery. An 8-hour back surgery. What did they started at like 5 o'clock at night?
No, I started at 3. I
At
think it
three.
was 3 o'clock. Yeah.
Wow.
3 p.m. and they ended at I think somewhere around 2 a.m.
2 a.m. or that's when you came out of recovery.
That's when I woke up in recovery. So
When you
maybe I
woke
think it was
up,
like told right. So I think it may have been like 12:31. Yeah,
my
maybe around
God.
2. Yeah. It was a long surgery.
How are you feeling? Do you feel any improvement?
I feel fine.
I feel fine. Okay.
I feel
It feels
fine.
great.
I feel great. I don't know what else to say. People ask me how I'm feeling, like I'm supposed to be feeling. I mean, I'm not allowed to drive, right? So I'm stuck in my house. Like I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like a rat trapped in a maze. Like I mean, you know, give me, give me a treat, give me a treat, like, and I'll be
Good. You
fine.
can you can record some content for us. So for those that might have missed our episode last week or haven't been paying attention, Neil and I are going national because we got a lot of national griping to do because everything is crazy these days. And so because oftentimes we sort of go off of our local topic and start talking about national issues because, in fact, national politics is local. All politics is local to a certain degree, but some topics are more national topics than are related to local governance. So we, rather than sort of clouding up the channel with that kind of stuff, we decided to separate that out so we can keep Tao Talk focused on local issues and created a new channel that we're calling the Daily Gripe, which is our bitch channel. Really, it's our opportunity to sound off on issues nationally and even at the state level. Well, we do state stuff here too, and talk about that. So I've already created a channel. It is called the on YouTube. It's called the Daily Gripe Podcast. And I've already got a little promo video there that I made with the use of AI, and we've got some stuff recorded already. I'm working on editing it, and that's going to be starting to post soon. And who knows? Maybe we'll have a live channel for the live stream for that. That could be fun. Another announcement: I just found out that Riverside is now allowing us to connect to TikTok. So we will be. I wasn't able to do it tonight. I have to work on the logistics for that, but I will be connecting us to TikTok as well as Facebook and YouTube and X and keeping things going. So it seems like we don't have any questions. So I think we're going to wrap it up, folks.
I just one thing I
Oh, go
want to
ahead.
say is to all those protesting at Delaney Hall, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to everybody in Delaney Hall who is currently being held in the concentration camp. Um, I wish I could be there with you protesting.
Yeah. Yeah. There's and that's a topic we are covering in the Daily Grape, and so I'll get that. I'm editing it right now. I'm doing some editing for that, and we'll get that up there. So anyway, if you haven't already, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you've got that bell clicked so you get notified when new videos drop. When this goes up as a regular recorded episode, um, be sure to leave us a comment. You can come back and leave us a comment. That becomes more permanent. Sometimes these public comments don't appear on the final recording unless you look at it on a computer. So, if you could come back and let us know what you think and any other topics you might want us to talk about in the future. All right. So, thanks again for joining us, and we've got more stuff coming. So, make sure you're sticking with us, and we will see you soon in the next video. We love you guys, and Take care. Be safe.
Peace out.
That was a real, oh, wait. Oh, God. Bye bye. I